Hey everyone, good to be with you. We are back again for Lent and Parables. It's our third week, and we have a good parable this week. It's going to be a good discussion. So without further ado, let me read to you the parable of the workers in the vineyard. This is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. When he went out again about noon and about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard." When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat." But he replied to one of them, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?" So the last will be first, and the first will be last. You know, one thing you learn if you spend enough time with the scriptures is that God's measurements are not our measurements. In fact, God's understanding of generosity is so different than ours. Sometimes it even violates our sense of right and wrong. I'm thinking of the shepherd. We read this parable, thinking of the shepherd who risked 99 sheep to look for one. What kind of logic is that? I'm thinking about Jesus watching the rich drop bags of money into the temple treasury, and then this widow comes and drops a penny in, and he claims that she is the most extravagant. Stick that one in your calculator. And then we have today's gospel, maybe one of the strangest of all parables. We meet this farmer who's got a harvest. And so early in the morning, say before dawn, the farmer heads to, say, the town square where the day laborers congregate. And in this pre-dawn light, he sees the regular cast of characters, the people who know the drill, and they agree to work for the standard daily rate of, let's say $100. So off they go. But by 9, the farmer sees he's got a lot of work and he's going to need more people. So he goes back to the town square again. There are other laborers there. Sends them to the vineyard. Repeats this ritual at 12, at 3. But this farmer wasn't done. He'd make one more trip and he goes to the town square and there are still people there standing around. And somehow they said, we weren't asked these other times. But the farmer says, let's go. So they get out there, and before long, the day is done. The work is done. The harvest is done. So the workers are assembled. It's time to get paid. And per his boss's order, the foreman begins with those who got there last. The ones who got there at 5 o'clock. And here, where it gets dicey. The 5 p.m. workers must have been thrilled beyond thrilled to open their little envelope and see a crisp $100 bill in there. And there's a $100 bill for the next group. And the next group, going backwards towards that first group that was asked to come to the vineyard. Lastly, the early birds get their wages. And they get the wages that they agreed to, $100. But let the grumbling begin. 1 hour's work is the same as 12 hours work. It's a strange story, I told you. But Jesus isn't just telling us a story about an eccentric farmer, with a whacked out pay scale. He wants to teach us something about God. That's what he always is wanting to do with these parables. So what does this teach us about God? It teaches us that there is a quotient in Jesus's math that we do not factor in to our equations. And that, in a word, is grace. God's extravagant graciousness. Last week, we talked about grace. We talked in the prodigal son about grace, about that just incredible grace that the son was extended. And in a way, this parable has some similarities with the prodigal son in that the older brother, the kind of the way he is wounded by the seemingly unfairness of this all, he's indignant, because he's done all the right things. And it's just not fair, he said. Now, this kind of love is hard to comprehend. We talked about that last with the prodigal son. If it's not based on what we do, it seems hard to accept it. It's hard to comprehend it. It's hard to live into it. It's hard to get past the unfairness factor. And we can only have to go so far as in our own church. Some of us have been going to church our whole lives. Some of our earliest memories are going to church, and we're still going to church. We go to church regular. Now, what this parable is telling us is that you might have gone to church your whole life, but the person who comes today for the first time in their 60 years is going to receive the same reward. Again, stick that one in your calculator. Jesus is telling us that the insiders and those who come late to the show, all the same reward. It's hard. This passage also teaches us that the comparison business is just a total racket. It's a devilish racket to compare ourselves to other people, what they get or don't get, and to talk and to focus on what we deserve and others people deserve. It's just not our place. That word deserve is one of the most dangerous utterings that can come from a Christian's mouth. And, you can bet that the idea of deserving is the subtext of the workers' grumblings. And when it comes to grace, when it comes to grace, our job is to leave the comparing and the deserving conversations for other things. When it comes to grace, our job is to receive it, to open our hearts, to open our minds, to let that grace in. Now, I've talked about a lot of stuff, and I really am looking forward to hear what you have to say about this parable. You know, I don't know. I like this parable. I think I like how it kind of throws us off and makes us wonder about our own pay scale, if you will. We do judge everything. And here is a different way of judging. And, you know, we should be thankful that this is the case. This parable has good news. So think about it, ruminate about it, read it again if you want. It's Matthew 20. And we will gather again next Thursday, or this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. If you've never done the Zoom, it's really not hard. You have any questions, call me, or my number will be listed on this this email, and or call the office and talk to Rachel. She can help you also. But I look forward to being with you this Thursday. Have a good week.